Okay, so I decided to sit down and do a little video, kind of expressing my voice here and my personal experience with being on YouTube and sharing my personal discoveries, my experience and my ideas, thoughts, you know, all that good stuff. So let me go ahead and start with a little backstory about myself and my journey. I would say I came into this world awake. You know, that's let me see if I can phrase that better, but conscious. You know, conscious of looking around, things didn't seem quite right, you know? I've been on this journey for a long time. And I've had many different key moments of awakening. 2009 was one of my biggest explosive waking up to the matrix reality of things, such as at the time I was really looking into the holographic nature of this place and holographic overlays of a lot of different people. And at that time I was in school, I was in my undergraduate in psychology, and I was having a lot of things pretty much unravel when it came to academics and the kind of pushback I was having with professors with just basic questions about things, you know, not making sense, because a lot of things, the research I was doing, and it resonated more with me than the mainstream. So yeah, during that year, Peru was a big eye-opener for me, and seeing all these different things across continents, and you know, it just didn't add up. So I really started seeing that the technological component was there. We weren't being told, and academics, anything about the truth of this reality. So I had a big awakening, and it's funny because I made a lot of the connections before even seeing the Ancient Alien series. Not saying that that's all truth, but yeah, it was a big mind-blowing experience for me, you know, and I can always go into more detail about different personal experiences, but anyway. So yeah, I had my first, you know, reptilian shapeshifter alien. I don't know if it's hard to even say if it was a full reptile or if it was some kind of gray creature, but yeah, I had my own experience, and that really shook me big time. I guess 2012 was another big year of like unraveling this onion of this reality. I did start playing around with filtering a lot of my nature photos and crystal photos, and I realized that if you mirror anything, it's almost like you're merging your left and right hemispheres, and you can start actually seeing what's really there. So seeing a lot of these crystal deities, and I don't know, petrified spirit, whatever you want to call it, but yeah, that was a big one. And fast forward, I guess it was 2020 when I was, you know, I always looked at a lot of real estate photos just for the architecture, the area. I just love real estate. And I started seeing a lot of things in the rural land I was looking at, or even old houses, like 1800s. And I was like, wow, that's it. Those things I was seeing a lot of times in the past throughout the years of being in photography since a kid, that's all real. There is this veil. There is this veil. And for many, whatever reasons, that could be a whole other topic of how limited our vessels are of seeing in these different spectrums. So that was another big, you know, revelation of knowing that elementals are real. You don't need to go to a far off land to see them. Fairies are here, gnomes are here, every different kinds of animal that's here. There's some kind of like being in through the veil that's there too. And then when I went to Arkansas, I went by myself and stayed in a cabin in the middle of the woods. And I was there, I was looking for land, I was talking to an agent. I had a Bigfoot encounter and a lot of different spirits and all that in the forest. That was really terrifying. But when I got home, I took at least a couple of weeks to process it all, and then shared that experience with a neighbor who then said, what you're describing these, you know, because I was telling her about Bigfoot structures. She's like, I've seen those structures in this park. So her and I went to this park nearby, and that's when I started hearing the Bigfoot calls and seeing their structures everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh. You don't need to go to a national forest or far away in the middle of nowhere to encounter cryptids. They're all around. A lot of them have been living around us, among us for a long time. So it was like another connection of knowing that they're all around us. It just, again, our vision is limited in these vessels, but that's why I love the camera so much, because it's definitely one of my biggest spiritual tools for seeing a lot of these things, and then part of my journey for uncovering these things. So always grateful. That's the technology I'm grateful for, as a camera, always, always, always. And so then, of course, then I started not only having that experience, but then I started photographing and videoing different planes in the sky, and it goes way beyond, you know, the trails and all that. I started seeing that there's some kind of technology that are holographic projections, you know, spheres or plasma that are showing this image of a plane. So there's a whole other component to that, and that blew my mind. It's like another thing to add to the unraveling. And then as I continue to do my work and photograph and video things and just, you know, observe this reality through a camera lens, which is a lot more honed in on kind of what we're seeing, I started seeing these grid lines. That's the only thing I named it. I didn't look that term. I just kind of gave it what I saw, because it's all these lines are connected with electricity, you know, standard, the lines of, from plasma lights, street lights, LED lights, to traffic lights, to all the electricity that's running through our homes. And I was just like, am I really seeing this? Like, you know, oh my gosh, it took me a while to process a lot what I was seeing. And then through these plasma lights, I was seeing the frequency fences. This is just my terminology, you know, with the grid lines, and then they were pulsing, and I'm timing them. I'm seeing this pattern, and then on top of that, I'm seeing these entities in these plasmic discharges that these LED lights are feeding the grid with. And a lot of these entities are all around these plasma lights. There's lots of them. You can look. Please do your own exploration with this. This is happening, okay? So it kind of goes back to this. I remember this old movie I saw in the 80s. I was really young. Like, I don't know, ex-prisoner that got executed, and he was traveling through electricity. Well, yeah, that's kind of similar what happens. You know, we've always heard that, you know, ghosts draw energy from our electrical devices, our batteries, our cameras. Well, there's truth to that, because a lot of these different entities use that electrical grid system to travel. They travel through these screens that we're listening on and looking through. These are all black scrying mirrors. So it's, side note, it's always good to kind of sage your phone, your computer, whatever device you're using from time to time, or just cleanse it with your energy and your intention, because these are portals, okay, where things travel to and fro. Another side experiment you can do, if you do, like, you know, do vlogs or you video yourself talking, play around with the filters, see what you see what you find there. But anyway, so going through this personal journey of unraveling things, seeing things a little bit more clearer, you know, I'm going to post this to YouTube because I really, at that time, I wasn't watching channels about these planes being fake. I didn't know any of these channels existed before I was doing all this. Luckily, I had some really cool people on here that have been kind of experiencing those same things, so I slowly did connect, you know, and I really appreciate, you know, those connections, because I was like on my own, like questioning my sanity. You know, you kind of question your sanity when you're discovering these things, you know. So then I posted in December 2021 my first video on the circuit boards and the grid lines. And of course, my channel, it's been pretty small and it doesn't really grow much. And, you know, I just thought it was part of the journey, that eventually, you know, information will get out and more of us can, you know, start talking about these things and collaborate together. Those are my intentions. Those are my intentions. But what ended up happening is, instead of different people coming to my channel, I mean, there's been some really cool people, I'll have to say this, side note, there are some really cool people, you know who you are, that have shared my videos, or openly we just support one another in our work. But what happened is, there's some bigger channels that come along, and I guess, I don't know why they do it. I guess just to scope. They want to scope for new ideas, information, and add it to their resume for their fan base or whatever it is. But they came along, and I guess they just lurked in the shadows, never made themselves known, and then used my material, my original discoveries, talking about the grid lines, the circuit boards. And back then, nobody was talking about this, okay? To my knowledge, okay? And I looked, there's nobody. So I was just calling them grid lines, frequency fences, circuit boards, you know, just from kind of as I'm going along here, you know, observing these things. And at the time, I was subscribed to Gina. I won't say her full name. I don't even remember her full name, but and I had come across her channel. I don't know how long ago. I guess it was maybe around 2020, maybe earlier. I don't know, but I didn't really watch a whole lot of her videos. I'd watch some of them because I thought it was interesting, seeing, you know, catching things in webcams and such, but only if like something struck me, I would kind of click on it. And I always kind of got a weird vibe from her. I don't know, something felt faulty or off, or she was trying to put on some kind of something. I don't know, I couldn't quite pinpoint, you know, what it was. And I made maybe one comment in her live feed and maybe one on a video, but I just didn't feel comfortable. Something felt off, you know. So fast forward a bit, I guess it was last year that I noticed I was starting to kind of see some similarities of what she was talking about. Like, I'd post something and then I would see a similarity of what she was posting. And at the time I was like, well, I don't know, maybe it could just be those synchronicities that do happen. You know, there are these beautiful things, like I've mentioned before in a past video, that happen where, you know, because we're all tied in with this ether, right? These grid lines and everything else that connect to our own toroidal field. So messages are coming and going and whatever. So I kind of just was like, I'll just note it, mental note. But it wasn't until, I guess it's almost about 3 months now, 2 months, something like that, where she came out with a video, which has since been put to private, okay? Where she came out talking about some other video going viral, some circuit board in the sky going viral. And I've not yet seen anything like that, but I'm sure it could be out there. I just never saw it. And in this video, it's like nails on a chalkboard, really. this is what confirmed it for me. She openly states that she was the one that discovered these grid lines, and it almost sounds exactly how I described it in the video I put out on how to see these grid lines. Usually people say when they're, you know, lightening something, they brighten it and they use the different features. Well, she told her audience that she discovered these grid lines, and all you have to do is lighten them, and then you see these grids connecting. So she put it out there, and you know, and at that time I was just like, wow. She was gloating and almost having this fake sympathy from her crowd of followers, you know, like, and I knew at that time, this little skank, this little, like, oh my gosh, this weasel, wow. Well, that kind of solidified it for me, because she was using the same terminology that I came up with, you know. I used it loosely, but, and then she continued to, you know, put that video to private. I immediately unsubscribed, and that's where my community post, I just had a little post like, I'm just done with these people that are just opportunists, you know. And that's pretty much stealing my credit for what I've discovered. So I know all I can speak is from my personal opinion and experience with it, that she's not one that has integrity. She completely was on my channel and lurking in the shadows and adding it to her own whatever she's doing now. I mean, last I checked, she had 140 something thousand subscribers. So whatever, you know, might as well state my intention is not, I don't want 100,000 subscribers. That's not my intention, okay? But my intention is if I'm going to continue putting out what I'm finding and my observation, discovery, research, you know, there should be credit placed. There should be credit placed in that. And she, for whatever reason, wanted to feed her ego and I guess build more profit. I really can't speak on that, but yeah, so she's a phony. She's 100% phony, and it really hurts when, you know, you kind of discover that people are lurking in the shadows of your channel just to rip off your material for their own gain and promote it to the public as their own. And then since then, she's had other people, I think she shared other people that have caught something of a glimpse of these grid lines. Not what I've been showing, but it's detailed. But that's one I'm going to call out, because it's not right. It's not right. You know, I'm not here to put out my information while my channel is really suppressed and the algorithm is just like, you know, not really working for me too much. Continuing sharing my personal discoveries for other channels to come in and take my hard work just for their gain. And this video is already going on 20 minutes, so maybe this will be just a part 1 because there's more to talk about. So thanks for listening. I will be posting a part 2 relatively shortly, so thanks for listening. Bye.